Hi everybody, welcome back to Facebook Live. Thanks for joining me today. So for those of you who are returning, I appreciate it. And for those of you who are new, what I like to do with our time is give you guys the opportunity to write in any questions that you might have that are more universal in nature so that we can all benefit from, the discussion. I felt guided to create this as a safe space for us like-minded people to come together and talk about the things that we're curious about and maybe that you can't talk about with just anybody. So we're going to start with one of the questions. You should start.
Okay, great. So there's two questions from Angelique and Yvonne, and they go like, how do spirits... Their questions go together, and it's how do spirits enter the higher heavens? Are there different levels, and is there a criteria that souls have to meet? I think to get to those levels is what they're wondering about.
So how do they enter? Well, we're all going, in a sense, to the same place, but we're going to end up in different classrooms, so to speak. I mean, I always go back to my school analogy, but you pick up where you leave off. And so the good you did in life, it does count and it carries over. And so the more kind and the more loving and caring and generous you were on all levels, you cross over and you go to that, you graduate in a sense to the next level. And so for everyone, it's going to be different. And for some of us, who maybe didn't do such a great job in this lifetime, we weren't the most loving or kind, you have to own up to it once you get over there. And so I wouldn't call it, a hell, but you're going to end up where you deserve. And so there's really no criteria because, again, we're all going to go. That's just matter of fact. It's just a matter of where are you going to go. And that's what it comes back to, living an intentional life. And we all make mistakes, we're all human, but if your intentions are sincere to do better the next time, learn from your mistakes, and then, to redeem yourself by doing more good in this lifetime, you have nothing to worry about. You'll end up in the place you're supposed to be.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Kelly has a question about social media and the internet and whether that lowers our vibration.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on how you're using it, because social media and the internet has the potential to lower or heighten your vibe based on what you're looking at, what you're paying attention to. So if you're someone who's going onto social media and it's bringing up, you're looking at posts and pictures or comments that are bringing up insecurities and making you feel uncomfortable or less than, that's obviously going to lower your vibration. But instead, if you're going on to get in touch with old family and friends and tune in and look at pictures and get excited to reconnect and see what they're up to, or you're going on the internet to research articles that excite you, or listen to YouTube videos that are about things like spirituality that raise your vibe, obviously that's going to raise it. I know for me, I have a very hard time getting on social media and just scrolling. It's like an escape. It numbs me out. I get really just tired and drained. However, I love in the mornings, one of the first things I sometimes do is go onto YouTube and tune into an Abraham Hicks video, and listen to that, because for me, that raises my vibe. So you just have to really gut check and feel how you're feeling when you're using it, and that's your guidance.
Yeah, thanks. Mm-hmm. So Sharon asks, her mom has passed and she connects with her and all of that is great, but she's having some financial issues, and so she wants to know, is it okay to pray and ask for money? And if we don't pray and ask for money, does that hinder our ability to manifest our financial needs?
Yeah, okay, so I think the real issue here is remembering money is not bad. Money is an energy. And it's really, so the answer is no, it's not bad to pray and ask for money, because whatever whatever you're praying for, if it's going to bring you a sense of peace and calm and allow you to focus all your positive energy on your purpose and take away all the distraction and stress around something that's dimming your light, well, the universe supports that. And so if you pray and ask God and your guides always first, okay, then your dead people, because yes, sometimes they are our cheerleaders, but sometimes they don't have the power to, they don't have a magic wand. Some of them do, some of them don't. Depends on if they're a guide. And so I think it's healthy and fine if your intention behind asking for it is for good. It's not greed and it's not to do wrong, but it's to bring more joy and more experiences. Because at the end of the day, we need money to live, right? And so again, it's just an energy and there is nothing wrong with it. Now, if you don't ask for it and you just focus on being you and living your life, it's going to come. It's usually when we're focused on the lack of it, we start manifesting more lack of. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So Julie and Jody have similar questions, and it's basically, what are your thoughts on past life regression hypnosis, and are there any benefits in this life to learning about our past lives?
Yeah, there's definitely benefits. I did a reading today for a woman who I brought up. She had really bad back issues, and she couldn't believe that over the phone her mom knew that, but her mom's in tune with, it's been bothering her for years, and I told her it's from a past life, and you were stabbed in the back, literally, and you should go see a past life regressionist, because that's not what I do. But I think it's great because you get to the root of an issue that's in your subconscious, but it's also in your soul consciousness, and you brought it into this lifetime to remember it, to look at it. It's probably serving a lesson, teaching you something so that you can heal it and move on. I think I've done past life regression multiple times. I think it's amazing. It just kind of validates relationships in your life to see the patterns, because if a lot of times we come back in with people we've been with before to finish unfinished business. And it's not always negative. Sometimes it's positive, okay? But, those relationships where you swear you've known that person before, you've been down this road with them before, and you probably have. So to work with someone who can regress you get into your subconscious memories that you on some level know. You bring it to the surface, and then you can use that to better help you learn the lesson in this lifetime.
Great. I'm going to move to a question that's kind of related to that. So Anna is wondering, how do we recognize our soul group in this lifetime? Do they always reincarnate with us?
So how do you recognize them? It's more a feeling than, a recognition. It's recognizing the patterns. If you see, you keep running into the same person, and you just start noticing patterns. So, and at times you feel like you are the mother to your mother, right? So a lot of times it's like that's a soul group recognition where, yes, like we were just talking about reincarnation, you probably were the mother in that past life, and you brought in some of those same tendencies, and you're subconsciously acting them out. So I would just say pay attention to the people you feel an affinity for, or the opposite, a complete dislike. I've had that happen where, and this doesn't happen too often, but there was one person in my world that was really rubbing me the wrong way for no reason, because she never did anything. Mm-hmm. And then I got on the phone with an intuitive, and they brought her up and told me about a past life deal I had with this person who really hurt me, betrayed me in that lifetime. And so I knew it. I knew there was something, and I wasn't making it up. So it is fascinating.
Yeah. So Bill has a question about deja vu, and he's wondering what the purpose of it is and if it's a sign that we're maybe on the right track in our life.
Yes. Deja vu, my guides told me years ago, it's kind of that your higher self or higher guidance reminding you pre-contracted that exact moment to happen before you came in. So we all have a destiny, and it's a loose script that we pre-arrange before we incarnate. And there's certain things along the way that will show up to kind of spark that re-remembering on a soul level, and that's deja vu. And so when that happens, I tell people, pay attention to it, because I see it as a pat on the back. You're right where you need to be. Even if it's a situation that's not wanted or comfortable, it is a reminder that it's happening for a reason, and to embrace it and not judge it. Just be in it and see you're on the right track.
Thank you.
So Julie is wondering, how can we reconnect with our spirit guides if we feel like we've kind of lost that connection? And what can we do if we feel like we're doing the right things, but we're still not getting signs or what we're looking for from them?
So you're always connected to your guides, and your guides and God and spirit, they've always been there. They've never not been there. It's just that we're not always paying attention. And so the minute you decide to become aware and engaged in it, then it's going to start igniting that connection again. It's very common to not feel like you're getting signs or that you're missing the signs. And I think so often it's just because we have strong minds, and they oftentimes talk us out of or bring in doubt and sometimes fear. And so it's usually in the gaps. It's like in between those doubts or fear-based thoughts that you're going to get this sense of knowing, or get the signs, or see or get the messages, see the signs. The best way you can strengthen that connection is by honoring it every single day. And that means just like you take time to, connect in with your kids or your spouse or your best friend or your parents, it may not always be a long, extended conversation. We have busy lives, but it could be 5 minutes a day. And I like to start my day that way. If I'm lucky, I get to end it that way. And I just pray, and I ask my guides to come in and connect with me, and what do I need to know? And then I meditate to receive. So that's where you just still yourself and meet them halfway and make room for them to download whatever it is you need to know. So I would encourage you, if that's speaking to you now, then put it to the test and try it for yourself.
Thank you. So Maureen asked if a medium is able to give insight and advice on a relationship and future advancement of a relationship.
That's funny. I just had a young woman walk out of my office, and that's exactly what her grandpa came in and talked about. I just wanted to share, the way it came up is I asked her who Michael was, and she looked at her mom, who's sitting next to her, and she goes, "That is the guy I swear is the one, and I said, "But he's unavailable." And she said, "Exactly." And I said, "Your grandpa's saying, unfortunately, he's not the one. You didn't make this up. You didn't misread it. He was a significant person in your life, but he has free will. And he's unavailable because he's choosing to stay in an unhappy relationship, which means you won't get to be with him." And he encouraged her to move on. And then we talked about her future. And at the age of 34, she would meet this person, but they wouldn't give her details. They wouldn't give her a name, they wouldn't give her initials, they wouldn't give her dates, because I said, your grandpa's saying you obsess over details. And if I say Stephen, you're only going to date Stephen. And it could end up being his middle name, Stephen. And she laughed. She goes, "My grandpa knows me so well." And her mom's like, "Yep, that's her." So the point is, spirits talk about relationships all the time, because if it's going to bring you peace of mind knowing that it is in the cards, then you can just be in the present moment and not worry about it, and just know you'll fall into it in the right divine timing.
I love that story.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
So Sharon asks, do souls pick their parents? And then with that, does this mean that couples who have children are meant to be together so that child can be born?
Yes. So that goes back to contracts. So there are sometimes people end up in relationship, whether they're officially married or not, to specifically bring in a soul or more as their children. And then once that is complete, or for however long after, their time together is done. It's time to move on, because that was the whole purpose. And so it's very common at that point for everyone to kind of move on. And that's why we're seeing so many, blended families. And it's just more accepted, because that actually we have many, many soulmates and relationships. We don't just have one forever in the spirit world. And the same goes. And for some, it is for a lifetime, but for a lot of people, it's not. And sometimes the souls they sit down with the council, which is all the highest guides of everybody's team spirit, and they sit down and contract birth order and who their siblings will be and all the specific details, because it's going to help them learn certain lessons. And to sum this up, we do choose our parents. So I know there's a lot of people who are feeling like the black sheep in the family. They're like, there's no way I would have chosen this family. And a lot of times you're the advanced soul taking one for the team. You agreed to come in and show them a different way. This is what I mean when I say be the light. You may not fit in, but you have the opportunity to show the people around you, your parents, a different way of operating.
Thank you. So Sharon is asking about kind of the feelings that you get when you receive a message from Spirit, and what are other ways to connect with Spirit besides meditation.
So the feelings I get there's so many. I could just go back to my readings today where a woman was explaining a situation about her daughter deciding if she should go to law school or not. And I got this huge, excited feeling from the spirit, the brother who had passed, saying, not now. If she goes now, she's going to end up like abandoning that path because the timing isn't right. I said about 1 year from now, and she said that's exactly her plan. She's working for a law firm, and she said in about a year she thinks she'll be ready to go back to school. And so it was just this strong, overwhelming, like, no, don't do that. But feelings come out of the blue. They're really abrupt. I don't have time to think about it. It's not coming from a mind level. It's just a very strong impression that you didn't have moments before. There's so many ways I receive my feelings or messages, but that's an example. Other ways to communicate besides meditation, bottom line, meditation really just serves the purpose of being present. And when you're present, you're available to see the signs and tune into this higher vibration. Like I said earlier, God is everywhere. It's all around us. Signs, guides, angels, they're everywhere. But we're so busy running around, or our mind is so busy, the monkey mind going around and around in thoughts, we miss it. And so you don't have to actually sit down and meditate. You just have to make up your mind to be present. So what does that look like for you? You have to ask yourself.
Thank you.
So last year you recommended, this is from Pamela, she said last year you recommended a card deck, The Universe Has My Back, from Gabby Bernstein, and she's wondering, are there any other cards that you love?
So I do my cards on apps now. You obviously can buy the decks, but I think it's more convenient for me. And so I found this one, I've never seen a deck, but it's Michelle Newton, and it's Archangel Michael Sword and Shield Oracle cards, and I love it. They feel very channeled, her messages that go along with the cards you draw. So that's been my go-to for the last few months. I love Osho. Osho is one of my favorites. Those are great. And then John Holland, he has a great one, the Spirit Oracle, or Spirit Messages, I think it is. Those would be the three I flip between right now. I have a lot of decks, but...
Me too.
Yeah. I'm a junkie.
Thank you. That's awesome.
So Janine is asking if people maintain the same characteristics in the afterlife that they had in the physical world, and she's kind of asking specifically about negative traits.
Yeah. So just because you die, not everything's erased. You pick up where you leave off, and so you retain your character, and you retain those traits. However, generally when I do readings, the spirits that come through are aware and owning those traits, those hurtful or negative traits. And so they may not be completely changed because it takes time to work through and heal and balance out the negative karma that came along with those traits and hurting people. But the recognizing the fact that they had those traits is the first step. And anytime I do readings, I always pray that only spirits in the person's or the group's highest and best good come through. And so if there was a spirit that wasn't willing to own it or recognize, they wouldn't come through. But the ones I work with, they generally do. And then it takes time to shift and move beyond. And that's usually why we reincarnate. We want a second shot or third shot or 110th shot, whatever it is, to balance it out and get it right and do better.
Mm-hmm. So Jessica's wondering, what do spirits tell you about God?
So they tell me God is not a thing. God is an energy. It's a feeling. God is love. And so usually they're describing God as their happiest place on earth. Okay, if, let's say it was Disneyland, and let's say it was Hawaii or Pebble Beach golf course, whatever brought that spirit so much joy and just authentic peace and connection in life, that's their heaven, and that's where they found God. And so just remember, God is love. That's what they tell me. And so that means that God spark I always talk about, we all have it. We all have the God goddess within, and we can choose to operate from that place, or we can choose not to. So, right, love or fear. You come from love or fear, which means you're in your godly self. So that's what they tell me.
So Erica is asking if our goal is to raise our vibration by operating from a place of love, or eating well, exercising, whatever it is. If that's our goal, then do we start at like a 0 point if we do something to lower our vibration? Are we kind of like starting over again?
If you screw up once, God no, I hope not. I'm in trouble. Think of it as, that's not my experience. Think of it as working out. Let's say you're committed for a year, you hit the gym 4 to 6 days a week, you're lifting weights, you're building muscle. And then you take a week off or 2 for the holidays. When you go back to the gym, you're not starting from ground zero. Mm-hmm. You still have muscle. You might have lost a little muscle mass, but not everything. So you know how it is. Sometimes getting back into it is hard and you feel sluggish and it takes a few days, but then you're right back. So it's the same with vibration. You might have a day where you're just out partying and living it up and didn't get much sleep, and it takes you, I know for me, if that happens, especially the no sleep thing, it takes me a good day to balance out and to ground and then to raise my vibration. So don't be hard on yourself. It's all about moderation, balance. I'm all about the middle way. You have to be real, live life, and not be hard on yourself if you do screw up. Because let me just say this. If that is the case, you're lowering your vibration. Because you're getting down on yourself and negative and self-critical. That's low vibe right there. So it's like saying, okay, had fun, next, move on. And then you get back into your intentional practices to raise your vibe.
So Sharon asks, how can we know if financial issues are part of our life plan or something that we can change through like law of attraction and things like that? And then how do we go about making that change? But kind of like, how do we know, what's part of that soul plan?
Yeah, we all have different karmic baggage, so to speak, like meaning lessons that we need to work out. And sometimes it comes up in readings. It happened again today where a woman, I said to her, you don't have karmic issues with money. Your husband does. Mm-hmm. And it's not negative. He's just obsessed with making money. And she said, that's 100% right. He works in the world of finance. He loves it. We have abundance of it. I'm grateful for it. But it's not my deal, and I can take it or leave it, but he's obsessed with it. Well, maybe in a past life he was, in poverty, and, who knows what the lesson is around that, but they're doing good with it, and it doesn't matter. So the point is, it's patterns. Do you see patterns, and do you feel strongly about something or not, right? I know for me, for a long time, I had a bad pattern with money, and it was giving it away and being too generous. And I know it sounds crazy, but it was enabling. And I would take care of people in a way I probably shouldn't have. And so, at least to a certain degrees. And so I had to learn this lesson, and I learned it the hard way. And then again, it goes back to the middle way. There's a way to be in balance, moderation with whatever that lesson is.
Thank you. So Julie is asking, basically it's about how we can deal with narcissistic or toxic people in our lives, particularly if we're very empathic.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's a lot of narcissistic people in this world, and I believe the reason for that is they've forgotten who they really are. They've gotten caught up in the illusion, and they're living and operating in fear every day. And the best way I've found is to be compassionate. And because the minute we start judging them or shrinking down and hiding from them, we give our power away and we lower our vibe, right? So we want to be compassionate and loving. You can have strong boundaries. You don't have to. So the best way is to protect your energy, number one. So I have so many tools and tips on that on my website, and meditations and all that. You can put the white light bubble. It's what I call about getting spiritually dressed every morning, putting the bubble of light around you. Hopefully your bubble of light rubs off on them versus them bringing you down into that kind of narcissistic energy. But you just have to know, you can be sensitive, but you can't be so sensitive that you don't live life and that you stay indoors all the time. And I know it's tempting because I'm an empath and it's hard to be in crowds, especially people who are narcissists. But again, I think we can be the light and serve as an example of what it looks like to be compassionate. And then one more thing. What I was taught a long time ago, and it works, you can't send and receive energy at the same time. So you want to be in that mode of centering yourself and beaming out light to that situation or that person who's bringing you down, the narcissist, the psychic vampire, so that you're flooding them versus being vulnerable and receiving theirs, okay? And then when you walk away, you might need to replenish, but it's infinite. All you have to do is plug back in to your connection to source, and then you'll be replenished. So I would encourage you to try some of that.
So this question comes from Sharon, and she's asking if it's possible to consciously override an exit point.
Yes. You can rewrite your script. You're not committed, meaning before we're born, we have that blueprint, that script, and we loosely script it so that we might have one exit point or we might have 9. And you hear the saying 9 lives. Well, a lot of times we get to an exit point and we're not done, and we may or may not know it on a conscious level, but on a soul level we know we need more time and we want to be here. So we bypass, and then we have a wake-up call where we have a near-death experience, but we get out of it. So I have heard of people, I've never experienced this, but who have worked with shamans or any type of energy healer to speed up the exit point, or to rewrite that life script because they changed their mind. Okay, and that does happen. It just is. I would say, no, I'm gonna leave it at that. Okay.
All right, well, this will be our last question. We're almost out of time. So Donna asks, she would love to know, how do you conduct group readings, and specifically, how do you differentiate between the spirits and identify whose loved one it is?
Yeah, that's the hardest part of doing groups, whether it's my 8 people groups or my hundreds of people in a large event. It's how do I figure out who's talking? This is so funny. This morning, I had a Bob come through, and he was so insistent, and this woman's son died, and I said, he's with Robert, he's an older man. She had no clue. Fast forward to my next reading, Bob comes through. That person had no clue. Then my third reading, I said, there's a Robert or Bob, and then I have a Charlie or Charles. And the woman laughed. She goes, both my father and my father-in-law were Robert Charles. And she goes, my dad, Robert Bob, just died. So anyways, it was very hard for me to know who the spirit was and who he belonged to, because they don't really communicate. They definitely don't communicate in sentences. It'd be much easier on the medium if they did. And so what you have to do is you really have to work with the Spirit and say, okay, Spirit, give me more. Who do you go to? I need more specifics. So in my groups, I narrow it down to, okay, Bob who loved avocados. And the woman's like, oh my God, we buried my dad with avocados because he loved them so much. I mean, that type of crazy stuff that only one person out of hundreds ends up owning. And then you're able to channel the messages. And so I would just say it's an amazing experience to witness the groups because the spirits are all friends and work together, even if in life they were complete strangers. And it brings that oneness to the group. It's like we start to realize at the end of the day, we're all alike and we're all going through similar things and we're all connected. It's that God spark that connects us. And so I love the energy of groups. So I do hope, who asked the question?
Donna.
Donna, I do hope you experience a group one day and you get to see for yourself how amazing the energy can be. Okay, so it sounds like we're out of time. I know we have a ton more questions. I want to apologize for missing last week. I was not feeling well. Is that what was going on?
Yeah,
I was sick a couple times. And so here we are, but I will keep writing in and we'll get through as many as we can. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, I'm going to remind you, I know it's probably annoying because I say it every time, but this is what I've been told to say from my guides. You don't need me and you don't need anybody else outside of yourself to make the connection to your loved ones and to your higher guides and your higher self, your higher guidance. And so it just is a matter of making the commitment to suspending disbelief long enough to open yourself up to the possibility of the miracles happening. And when you do that, that's when the synchronicities and all the flow and all of the signs and all the messages and connections start happening. So until we meet again, I hope that you put that to the test. I'm wishing you brightest blessings and all love.